Hello there, welcome back. I'm talking about Hateful Eight today. Now, Hateful Eight is Tarantino's 8th film. He does this big thing of this is the 7th film, 8th film, 9th film by Quentin Tarantino. Like, it's really important that you know which number it is, like it's an episodic TV show or something. I don't know, it doesn't matter because they're just individual films, you'll watch individual ones. It's just like a self-promotional thing. It's a bit P.T. Barnum, really. So this is one of my favourite of his films. I mean, if you saw my Inglourious Basterds review, you know, I think he's good talent, but I thought the end of that film was pretty horrific in all the wrong ways. And I didn't particularly like the ending of Django Unchained, which we'll get to in another video. But this one to me was a return to form after two films that had a lot of promise that didn't deliver in the final third. This one really delivers for me. This one really is much more contained. It doesn't try and be epic. It's set mainly in one location in this basic like haberdashery, which is a location where people can stop off in the 19th century, post Civil War. You can stop, they can rest up, they can get something to eat if they're going from one place to another in a coach. That's what it is. So during a snowstorm, Kurt Russell is his character called the Hangman. He's taken Daisy DeManga, who is played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, to the Hangman basically to be hung. She's a member of a gang. She's a criminal, and they never let you forget that. He does not give her much space. He will punch her, beat her up, whatever. He does not treat her any different from when he would treat a man. He doesn't care. He's going to hang her. He's called the Hangman because he's a guy who always takes them to be hung. He doesn't just shoot them and just take the body in and get some money for it. He's not built that way. So because of his way of doing things, there's a chance for her comrades in arms and crime to get her back. So on his way to the town to hang her, the snowstorm hits. He runs into Samuel L. Jackson's character, the Major, who's also a bounty hunter, but he just kills the people. He has no, he doesn't care about hanging them or not hanging them. He just kills them, so he wants the money. So his horses died on him, so he needs help. So Kurt Russell lets him in the coach as they're travelling, and they start to talk. And it tells you a lot about the mutual respect of these two characters, even though they don't know each other that well. And they don't quite trust each other, but they both know each other professionals. And you get the sense of how dangerous Jeff Lee's character is, and how sticky the situation is just with these conversations. So, and then they run into Walton Goggins, who's also another guy. He comes from the South, and he fought for the South in the war. Of course, Samuel Jackson's character is black, so they do not get on. And so he also gets lost in the snow, and he's going to be the sheriff of the town that they're taking this person to. So they need him to survive, even though they're not quite sure if he's lying or not, because they think he'd be a member of her gang. They're not sure if he's lying or not, but they know if they leave him to die, they won't get paid. So they have to take him, but they don't trust him. Into this situation, which is basically the first quarter of the movie. Maybe it's not technically, but that's what it feels like. That's the first act of the movie. Then we go into the haberdashery, but there's 4 other people waiting, but everybody they know from there has disappeared. They're not there. It's like, where are everybody? They went to visit her mother in the snow to make sure her mother's okay. But no one trusts each other, and now they're stuck because the snow's getting much, much worse. So that's the setup. No one trusts each other. They're all stuck in this building, in this haberdashery. In there, you've got Tim Roth as this kind of Terry Thomas type character. He's very verbal, very English. You've got Michael Madsen as this guy sits in the corner. You've got a Mexican actor whose name I can't remember just now, as this guy who's wandering around, who says he's running the place now while the owner's away, and no one quite trusts him, so he doesn't quite add up. And you've got Bruce Dern as this old southern major who's sitting in a chair and who just sits there. And the thing is, he is the one of these people could be one of a gang. Two of them could be. No one's quite sure. Do you even trust the people you come in with? And it's like, well, okay, what's actually going on? Because the only person who knows what's going on is Jennifer Jason Leigh, because she knows who her gang is and who isn't. And it's like, as the time goes on, everyone's waiting out, everyone's seeing what's going to happen. And that's basically the plot, which a lot of you probably know that, but I thought I'd explain it just for a start. What is good about it is it's just about paranoia. And that's what Tarantino was better at. Like, he did it in Reservoir Dogs, this sense of paranoia. He did that in Jackie Brown, which was a quieter, more humane version of that thing. This one is much more brutal characters. It's called The Hateful Eight because a lot of the characters are, you're going to find pretty gross. I mean, Walton Goggins and Bruce Dern both play Southerners who are racist, who come from who have a racist past at least. I mean, Walton Goggins you're never quite sure about because he's, is he racist or did he just come into a society that was racist and he just took on some of the mores but didn't care that much? It's like you're never quite sure with him. And you're basically taking it from Samuel Jackson's point of view a lot of the time because he's watching The Hangman and Jennifer Jason Leigh. He's watched everybody else. He's trying to figure out who's what. But he's got his own agendas. He's got his own suspicions with people. And he's got his own vendettas. And it's like everyone's got their own thing and everyone's got pretty dark motivations. But that's what makes it work. It's a lot of the conversations. And basically Tarantino's got himself a situation where, because of the tension of the situation, he can let people talk for a long time. Because he loves characters to talk. But in some of his movies, that talk becomes very over-stylized and very self-indulgent if you don't have a motor and a story to keep you going. And this one he's got it. I mean, one of the things I thought of his last few movies before this was sometimes he talked a little bit too much. And he didn't have the motor he thought he had for all this talk. And this one, he's got it because he's got a narrative thrust. But he's also got all these characters that are a lot more interesting than some of the characters he's been writing recently. Because, I mean, in Inglourious Basterds, a lot of them sounded the same. And even, like, different characters from different cultures had a very Tarantino-esque voice that I felt there wasn't enough, like, differentiation between characters in the style of talking. Even though you knew who each character was, sometimes you felt they were talking in a similar way, to a degree. I mean, it wasn't horrible or anything, but sometimes you could feel the voice come in more than it needed to be. Like, sometimes you'd feel like people from different cultures shouldn't be talking quite as similar as they were. Is my best way to put it. And I think that's something that happens in this film, this characters talking similar ways to each other, when you think, really, would they really? Wouldn't they be more defined different? In this one, they are a lot more different. It feels like because the settings there, he doesn't have to set things up all the time. He set it up, and now we can watch the characters interact. So everyone talks a slightly different way, so it feels a lot more of an original film. There's some people have a problem with the end of this film. They think it's too convenient. But who's bad, who's good, and they're all bad, but who's in a gang and who's not. Which I think is the best part of the film, actually, because it's a case of the whole plot relies on people being careful rather than people being rash. And people biding their time and not jumping for the quick solution when things go wrong, when things don't go their way. Because this is a film where everyone has a plan, but because there's so many people around, everyone's got their own different plans and nothing goes anyone's way entirely, so you have to change your plan and be really subtle about it. And the whole thing is, they want to make sure, because the Hangman's so close to Jennifer Jason Leigh, they don't want her, if anything goes wrong, he'll kill her straight away. And they don't want that. So it's like, it's a very careful motivations, very careful movements by the villains. And some people thought that it was a bit too careful. I don't. I think it's really good how they do it, because every character's point of view makes sense. And even if you don't think how they reacted was a smart way to do it, it makes sense for those characters. So that's why I was saying I think this one's better because of the characters are more defined, and you're feeling who they are rather than relying on the voice of Tarantino. But sometimes he's a crux. That's what it's did for a crux. It feels like each character's individual and they've got their own motivations, and sometimes they're wrong. But you get a sense of who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing certain things. And if they're following orders or not following orders. So it all makes sense, and the joy of watching it and rewatching it is seeing how all these little details add up. And seeing how the details of what Samuel Jackson's doing add up, and how the Hangman adds up, and how Walton Goggins' character adds up. Because one of the funny things is the film is Walton Goggins starts out as being the character you're probably going to hate the most, and by the end of it, he's kind of the more likeable character, even though he's a bit of a scumbag in lots of ways. But he does seem to be someone who's trying, you know. He's the one character in this film who seems to be trying to go beyond the past. At least a little bit. Not much, probably, but a little bit. He's the most kind of hopeful character to get beyond the past, even though he's kind of dragged down by his father's racist agenda. He's trying to move on and become a sheriff, if that part of it's true. But he seems to be someone who's trying to move on, and you do start to like him, even though at the start you really don't. Because it's like, he's a character with a background you're going to hate because it is racist. But the person himself, you start to see the difference between a background that's actually problematic, but a person who's maybe could be encouraged to move beyond that. And he starts to work with Samuel Jackson later on, so you definitely feel that he's not vehemently racist. This Bruce Dern character feels racist. He feels like this character's an actual racist. He thinks black people are inferior because of skin colour. You get that feeling from him. But you don't get the same feeling from Walton Goggins' character. The Bruce Dern character is much more like the Old South, and this other guy who's like the product of the Old South, but he may be not irredeemable. So it actually has a complicated look at race, where even though, because Samuel Jackson's character has his letter from Abraham Lincoln, which is a forgery, and the person who sees through it straight away is Walton Goggins, because that's bullshit. That wouldn't work. And it causes a lot of problems for everybody, and a lot of distrust. And you see some characters who, like Kurt Russell's character, Hangman, who he be taken into that letter because it points to a more hopeful future. And it's like, and when he finds out he's been conned by it, he's really angry. And it shows the kind of complications of race and the complications of what your perception is, and how, yes, I mean correct, but Samuel Jackson's character points out, it keeps him alive. He needs it in this racist society just to survive. You know, and it's like, it's funny because Walton Goggins is the one character who's in the joke. In that one, he's like, you'd think he'd be angry, but no, he gets it straight away. He's like, yeah, that's perfectly understandable as a way to survive here. And that kind of thing makes Walton Goggins' character human. And the kind of how him and Samuel Jackson has to team up eventually is what gives it a human touch to the story. Because ultimately it's those two versus Jennifer Jason Leigh. Ultimately, that's the kind of the final drama. It's these two characters come into the coach or against her, and everyone else is basically a supporting character. You think Kurt Russell is one of the main characters. He's not. He's a supporting character, but he's so well written and he's so well played that you assume he's the central character, and he's really not. It's basically the lion major and the idiot racist. They're the central characters of the film. And it's their kind of conflict that kind of drives it a lot. But it's not a conflict that's boring. And that's why I think it's one of Tarantino's best films. It's like, there's nuance to everything in a way that sometimes eludes them. But in this one, it feels much more earned and it's much darker. And it's in this kind of drama that's kind of like, it's got a kind of Jacobean brutal feel, like, you know, no one's getting this alive. This is a damned situation. Everyone's going to die in horrible ways. And the film just goes for it in that way. And it's really enjoyable because none of these characters are that sympathetic. But there's certain ones who are better than others. and you get a lot of fun with the characters. Tim Roth's having a riot, basically overacting, but not quite. He's camping up because a character would do that. But he always has a sense of a threat to him, though. There's always a sense of he's probably lying. And he knows he's lying, and he knows that you know he's lying, but you can't prove it, and you have to keep your eye on him, and keeping your eye on him basically means you're always been weakened, and that's the point of the character, and that really works. Because Tim Roth's having a lot of fun with it, and Michael Madsen's the guy in the background who's a lot quieter, and it's always like, yeah, he's dangerous, he's like a tiger waiting to get let off the leash. And a bunch of other characters have all got their moment. Everyone has their moment. But Jennifer Jason Leigh kind of steals the film towards the end, though, as you get to see more and more of how vicious her character is and how nasty she is. I mean, in the first half of the movie, she's beat up a lot, and you sense she's a watch, and she's intelligent, and she's clever. But the final third, she becomes a full-on monster. And it's one of the things with this, she's really enjoying herself. She's really playing it up, and but not overacting. But it's like she's enjoying being this utter monster who they should be scared of. I mean, ultimately, the hangman should have shot her straight away. But having her tied up or handcuffed is probably a good move for how dangerous she is. She is brutal, and she kind of steals the film in the second half of the movie. But it's a wonderful film. It's like, to me, this one and Jackie Brown are Tarantino's best film. These are my favourites of his. It's just a really good film. But it's very underrated because everyone says, it's not as good as Django Unchained. It's like, it's much better than Django Unchained. Django Unchained has a lot of problems, which I'll get to in another video. But this one's really good. It's a real deal from Tarantino. It's really well made. I highly recommend it. I would say go see it if you haven't seen it. You've probably seen it already if you watched this video, but if you haven't, go see it. But I've already spoiled the crap out of it anyway if you haven't. Right, so I'll be back with another video soon. Another Kurt Russell one. So there's a Kurt Russell double bill in this week. Right, I'll see you soon.